As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
I want to get to a more serious story. And this one, I think, may cause a lot of debate, maybe not. I actually am not sure. I want to kind of throw it up there and see. But the headline definitely is clickbaity. It says, this is a PC Gamer story, Netflix of games isn't likely, says analyst. So this is research firm Amphere. It says they're not convinced that subscription services like Game Pass are taking over gaming. They did a talk at GDC, which, by the way, Jimmy was at. And what they mentioned was, according to Amphere Analysis, subscriptions currently account for 4% of the total games market. He forecasts it'll be 8.4% by 2027, a significant amount of money, but still a small slice of gaming as a whole. He also points out that the total number of Game Pass games is fairly small, hasn't been growing much. It's about 500 games under Game Pass, and that it's not like Netflix started small too and has over 200 million subscribers. He says, but he points out that games and videos are different from each other in some important ways. According to Amphere's data, 79% of game spending in 2021 came from in-game transactions in free-to-play and paid games. That kind of behavior doesn't exist for Netflix or Spotify. So the crux of his argument, Game Passes and Netflix for Games style services are not going to be very big. They will remain sort of niche. And he doesn't think that games are on a verge of a Netflix-like takeover. He's quoted as saying, I don't believe that subscriptions will become the dominant monetization model in the game sector as it has done progressively in the video and music sectors. Anyone agree with his take? And do any of you guys agree with his take? Jeff, sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
You can go to Jeff.
No,
if you want to.
I just thought if anyone was going to agree, I thought maybe Jeff would.
No, I think let's put it this. I think 6 months ago, I probably would have agreed. And I've, as maybe you're alluding to, I've been super bearish on Netflix being the Netflix of games and kind of the moves they've made so far. But Game Pass, we can't ignore Game Pass. I mean, Microsoft has made, two massive acquisitions. One, obviously, bigger than the other. But clearly, Game Pass is why they bought Activision Blizzard. They're going to put those titles into Game Pass day one. So it's really hard to sit here and ignore that exists. Like I think, plus we saw Sony just announced a big subscription. Now they didn't.
Yesterday,
getting
right?
to that.
Yep, they didn't. I'm always good with the segues, the early segues, I guess. They didn't put their games in day one, but clearly they're moving towards a bit of a subscription model as well. So I don't know. I think this guy will probably end up being wrong.
I also want to add to that because I agree that I think that this is just wrong. We covered around October, November last year, Microsoft CEO, is it Satya Nadella, whose bonus, who didn't hit his bonus because the Game Pass subscriptions fell short, and there was a heavy component built into his contract about building out Game Pass. And we remember focusing on that point alone was this is the CEO of Microsoft proper, and a heavy component of his year-end bonus was on Game Pass. And yeah, it was short. That just kind of indicated how much emphasis and effort they're putting behind it, as well as how confident they are in its future. So whether it's Netflix becoming the Netflix of gaming, whether it's Microsoft, hitting these projections this year, or whether it's Sony, turning some heads with their new subscription service, these are three very compelling arguments for why this opinion is wrong.
But does no one buy the argument that if most of the revenue is coming from free-to-play microtransactions, right? That as a percentage of the total revenue, Game Pass subscriptions, Game Pass style subscriptions will be always relatively niche if free to play and in-game transactions are the majority of the dollars? Or do you believe that that's not a good argument because you think people who are doing free to play will eventually move over to Game Pass style subscriptions?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a cop out because it's a lot of the free to play is including mobile. So it's like it depends how we define the gaming industry. And obviously, I think we're as guilty as anyone. I think I use the definition that sort of suits best. So like I'm happy to talk about the 2 billion gamers out there. That clearly includes mobile, but now I don't want to include mobile, so I'll kind of acknowledge that. The thing that I was gonna say, and something I was thinking of that I honestly never really thought of before until we just started this conversation, that I want to get your take on. Do we think the metaverse, whatever your definition of it, will it be a subscription?
Question.
I mean, there the obvious, I think the knee-jerk reaction is it's so much of it is going to be driven by in-game, like in metaverse cosmetic purchases, that probably not, right? That sort of tends towards free to play or free to enter or however you want to describe it. But it's a good question because it definitely could be a subscription, right?
Like an MMO.
I didn't think you had to limit your comment to everything other than mobile either, right? Like Apple Arcade is an all you can eat mobile game subscription. The question is how many people will move off of free to play or free to enter, or what, if you're talking about the metaverse, right? How many people will move from that to a subscription instead of buying cosmetics a la carte, right? How many people will see the value of some kind of all you can eat subscription?
I do think the point that he probably is driving at, I'm sure it was mentioned in the article, is just around how consumption is different, right? You can play games for many, many hours. Like the average gamer will maybe play, I don't know, 4 games a year. Obviously, some people will play 50, but even still, the average person just consuming TV content will watch 250 shows a year, and like a power user might watch 1,000. So I do think like that is an inherent difference in the medium that does not lend itself to subscription. But I just think people like Microsoft and Netflix, when these big companies get this business model in their head, I kind of think they're just going to like take a hammer to the industry and kind of mold it to the way they want it to be. Like, I don't know. It just seems like that's where this is heading. And like, there's no choice that we have. I don't know. Maybe that's too simplistic.
No, I these are all good points. I think another part of it relies on IP. Like a lot of these free to play games are not really story rich environments. They're driven by microtransactions, by fun, short things that grab attention. But there's always going to be a need, I think, for that storytelling game, that captive RPG or what have you, that people want to immerse themselves in. And I think, whether it's a story game or a game that has a nice strong story but also has multiplayer. We saw some great acquisitions at the start of this year, and we saw a lot of backlash amongst Microsoft and Sony. When Bungie was acquired, when Activision Blizzard was acquired, like they better keep this game cross-platform. And then when the Steam Deck stories came out, Steam Deck saying, "Oh, we're not going to make our own subscription service, but we're welcome to support Microsoft on our platform." So one, you see a lot of consolidation. We see a lot of these development studios that are being acquired that have interesting IP, and we see a lot of, and I don't know if that correlates or not to these Game Pass type efforts, to these subscription services where they want to have a unique and tempting catalog to win the console wars, or at least to have an edge up over the competition. Part two is you see a big need also for that cross-platform play. How does that affect subscription services? Well, depending on who you ask, if you ask, Valve, right, they're open. They don't want to compete. They want to support it. So there's a lot of things to weigh and to consider here. But regardless of where you land on any one of these issues, I think it's still worth saying that there's significant money and effort being spent to develop these subscription programs, mobile, console, PC, uh, and to expect it, I would only expect it to grow and for them to put more resources behind it.
I just want to read some of the comments here. Tom says, is it 4 to 8% of total gaming revenue? I wonder what the percentage is of total streaming revenue of all video entertainment revenue. Tom, it is of the, they used revenue as sort of the way to come up with that number. So yes, what it would be of the total streaming revenue of all video and entertainment, that I don't know. A smaller number, I would assume, today. Johan says, why not in metaverse subscriptions to enter arenas, areas resembling real life gym memberships, etc.? I mean, that would make sense, right? And he goes on to say, think like the WoW model in the metaverse. I mean, the WoW model, let's be honest, no one has been able to replicate that, right? In all of gaming. And I would argue that is the pinnacle of game monetization, in the sense that they charge an upfront fee for the game and the expansions. They charge a monthly subscription to play the game, and they charge for in-game items, right? You want a little pet, you want to buy a WoW token for more gold in the game, whatever. Like, it's all of the above. They just said we want all the monetization. So I would think everyone would want the WoW model. The question is, what will people's reaction to that be, and can you be undercut by free to play, right? Like, this is always the challenge with free to play is, does it make your service seem expensive all of a sudden, and people aren't willing to plunk down dollars to try?
Well, the funny thing is, even Fortnite has now a subscription model baked into it. You could play Fortnite free to play, and that was one of the quintessential, I think, examples of a successful free to play game. And you can actually buy not just the battle pass, right, which is just gamification and rewards, but they actually have a subscription where it's like $15 a month. It comes with a new skin every month, as well as other rewards that you enable because you're part of this elite subscriber base. So it is that idea of packing it on. I think I would
Grand
love to
Theft
see
Auto
what that's
just
doing for them.
announced. I think GTA just announced the same thing. Right? I don't know if we're going to cover that, but it seems like that's the premium subscription is now like something that a lot of these games are adding, which makes all the sense in the world. It's just like balance, getting servicing more of the demand curve.
I like the idea of making it a VIP experience, but you have to offer enough to really justify the cost.
And you can make it an
NFT. There's a world for all of it.
Perfect. And I think you should read Tom's comment.
Tom says, I think Jeff is right about the hammer part. The juice is often right. Johan says, I think it would make more sense to be a premium add-on rather than a standalone model. Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, we have to get to a point where there are subscriptions that provide enough value in the metaverse, right? Like there are hurdles before I think worrying about direct monetization and like being able to connect metaverses and interoperate between them, and your avatar be able to travel between them and things like that. But yes, I agree. As an add-on, it makes a lot of sense.